Hello, everybody. Welcome to another live stream. I am Adam from UJAM, and I'm here with Peter, one of the co-founders of UJAM. Peter, you want to say hello to everybody?
Yeah, hello everybody. Excited to be here and getting a chance to talk about the very long history of virtual guitarists, and particularly the bit in the 10 years in UJAM.
Yeah, so we're celebrating a 10-year anniversary of Virtual Guitarist, and like Peter said, it's a 10-year anniversary that Virtual Guitarist was with UJAM because Virtual Guitarist actually has a longer history. But so our goals for today are we're going to explore a bit about the history of Virtual Guitarist, the vision. Peter's going to tell a little bit about how it came to be and the story behind it. And then we also have some tracks that we're going to review that we've received through you guys. And we are still accepting submissions. We're basically just doing a track review towards the end where we're giving feedback and whatnot. And you can still submit them through Discord on a SoundCloud link. We have a SoundCloud playlist that we'll be going through. So if you do still want to get track feedback towards the end, you can submit them still during the stream. But yeah, so Peter, we should just start with a little bit of a context of like where this all began. You mentioned to me just before the stream, you know, the virtual guitarist history is even longer than 10 years. Is that somewhere you want to start with, like where the idea came from? Because I'd be curious to learn about what sparked the concept for this product in the very first place.
It's an interesting story, you know. It's not a straightforward like somebody woke up, went under the shower, and had this idea story. It came about because in 1999, like you know that far ago, my first company, we did a project with Steinberg, which was called VST Drum Sessions, which was very successful. And there was this guy running the Swedish Steinberg Users Club, a guy called Sven Bornemark, brilliant, positively crazy guy, productively crazy guy. And he looked at VST Drum Sessions and he called me and said, like, why don't we make a guitar version of that? And I said to him, look, man, drums is one thing, but guitars is like times chords times keys. And I thought that's the end of it. Half a year later, he called. I'll try to make this really brief because this is a 2-hour story. Yeah. Half a year later, he called and said, "Are you ready for a demo?" And we went. So we went to the Steinberg headquarters, and he had this guy there called Paul Kellett, which will play a role in the rest of the history. And he had built a virtual instrument. You know, I mean, remember those were early days. The VST had just been invented. And so they demonstrated the very first prototype of Virtual Guitarist to us, and everybody was just floored. And we released it in 2001, actually. Steinberg Wizoo Virtual Guitarist, the original one. Yeah, so you know, that's the very inception of it.
2001, wow.
Yeah.
So that's been a long, and so it's been 10 years since it's been under the UJAM name. And so what did that look like? What was the migration to UJAM? Was it a brand new product, or was it some of the same pieces of the engine and the architecture, or what did the vision change at all in adopting it under UJAM?
Yeah, in a way, the vision changed. So first of all, it's the same team. So Paul and me, we're still with UJAM. You know, the people who were involved in the original Virtual Guitarist. Yeah, how did it end up in UJAM? It ended up in UJAM. The first step was DigiDesign. Today is just called Avid, buying Wizoo and us joining DigiDesign. And DigiDesign did not want to do a virtual guitarist. That's so Pro Tools like. And Steinberg had to discontinue it. And then 10 years ago, or 11 years ago, when we started doing Gorilla Engine and we wanted to do some products based on it, apparently because Virtual Guitarist was such a huge success and people loved it so much, and of course we loved it as well, we thought, what would a Virtual Guitarist look like, 15 years later? So it was a completely new instrument, a completely new concept. It still did the same thing, which was essentially, if you cannot play guitar, if you have no access to a guitarist, here's something that you can at least use to get your ideas out. Or if you are a guitarist, here's something that saves you a ton of time and setup.
Right, sure. Yeah, so that's the vision that was still consistent. Yeah. I've actually never seen the very first version of Virtual Guitarist, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to pull up an image or see what that looks like and how it's changed, but because then, so that there now have been multiple versions of Virtual Guitarist under UJAM. So there was Virtual Guitarist version 1, which I've seen. I've been with UJAM for about 4.5 years, and when I was joining, we were just undergoing the invention of the new version 2 engine, starting with
Yes.
Iron 2.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've actually seen version 1, and I knew UJAM during the version 1, and I had tried to use it, and it had a couple of quirks, but it was great. And so I got to see the migration from 1 to 2. But do you have any specific insight into like how you identified it was time for version 2? Were there things that were absolutely missing from version 1, or was it enough user requests? What actually catalyzed the decision to jump to version 2 at that point in time?
Yeah, so actually, it's funny, the transition from version 1 to version 2 was probably the biggest change ever in a virtual guitarist engine. So obviously between Steinberg times and when we restarted it in UJAM, there were big improvements. Sound quality was better, the realism was better. The one big change we made in UJAM was we switched to titles, because the original virtual guitarist did pretty much everything somehow. And in UJAM, we went to dedicated titles. We added, AMP algorithms and stuff. All that stuff was not in the original virtual guitarist. The big change that came about with version 2 in UJAM was there was always this thing like, hey guys, I cannot really, play my own guitar in there, because it was all recorded guitar phrases, and they were sliced up.
Right.
And in version 2, we went to a single note engine with some modeling and stuff. So now you have the instrument mode. So people can create their own styles, and they can actually edit the performances. And of course, it sounds way more realistic, and it allows you to do finger picking and arpeggiated styles and stuff. So that was probably
Right.
the biggest change.
That I remember usability wise, that was one of the biggest changes for me as a user, because I always remember trying to use Virtual Guitarist version 1 and being really into the phrases, but having a little bit of a hard time controlling the chord input and making it really mesh with my song. And I remember the decisions about developing the instrument mode in Virtual Guitarist 2. There were so many options and possibilities, and how do we get this thing to be conductible in a realistic way? And there are basically like 3 different modes within that mode. And I remember all of that, and that was really, really cool to see from the sidelines when I first joined UJAM, because it was pretty complex. I mean, you're trying to communicate that you have full control, professional control over a stringed instrument that is represented on a piano on software. So it's very, very convoluted thing to do, but it was cool. And version 2 is way more usable, and we've expanded it by now to all of the titles. And have there been new titles on version 2? No, not yet, right? Just elevation.
There has been Cinedream last year.
Oh, that's right, Cinedream. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just out of the picture a bit still on VG right now. But
well, that's all right.
That's right, Cinedream, the cinematic like dreamscape kind of title. Yeah, that one's really cool. But so I wanted to mention also to our viewers, that we are giving away 3 different licenses to Virtual Guitarist, and if you are a winner, you get to basically pick whichever title you want to redeem. So 3 people will get a single title, and the way that you can be entered is just by being active in the chat. Could be just showing support or asking questions to myself or Peter, and then we'll raffle the names at the end. Simon's running the UJAM channel in the chat, and he'll put you into a little raffle at the end, and we'll see who won. And then we also will, in a couple minutes, be switching over to a song feedback review session. But yeah, Peter, was there anything about this story that you feel like you wanted to specifically touch on that you didn't already? I'm reviewing our notes a little bit here, but
well, I mean, how much time does everybody have? I could riff for 8 hours.
I'd say we have like another 5 or so minutes to focus on this.
Yeah, I bet. But it's such a rich story. Yeah, there's something. I can probably share the moment of my biggest surprise, because and that was very early. That was when we did the very first Virtual Guitarist. So this was the first plugin that claimed to emulate guitars. And this is a very polarizing topic. Everybody's used to synthesizers and pianos being plugins. Nobody feels threatened by that, but guitarists, of course, felt very threatened. And the original reception, like 50% of the reception, was, oh, now you assholes are trying to take our jobs away.
Yeah.
Which was never, it was never the intention. Virtual Guitarist in the beginning, what it did quite well. but it did probably 2% of what you can do with guitars.
True.
And we had no intention of, being a competition to guitarists. So I remember the night when Steinberg announced it, Cubase Net was pretty much glowing with positive feedback, but also with a lot of negative feedback, which surprised me because nobody had seen the plugin yet. And so, and the reactions were very mixed. And that was the time, the next 2 months, when I learned the most polarizing plugins are the most successful, because that was the biggest success to date in Steinberg. And now here's the second surprise. The second surprise was that Steinberg did some survey. And as you know, Adam, in UJAM, we do a lot of user interviews and surveys and stuff. We have learned that in UJAM as well, that the user community of virtual guitarists now is split between 50% people who don't play guitar and, to my surprise, 50% people who play guitar, who go like, look, man, it's just so much more instantaneous. And, some people just demo with virtual guitarists, or they use it on a laptop, on a plane, or whatever. And then they still record their actual playing. But, I remember when I met Hans Zimmer for the first time, when he became a shareholder, Hans had just done a song with Robbie Williams, with Virtual Guitarist. Here's a guy who can call every guitarist on the planet, and he's in his studio in 8 hours, gladly, right? And yet he used this thing. And I said, like, why have you? You can, you can just call up Steve Vai or whoever you want. And he said, because that thing doesn't talk back to me, and it's there at 3 in the morning.
That's fair. Some people just want full conducting control over the session,
There you go.
It's a productivity thing. And I think it's a paradigm that's still very present today in any tech innovation. AI has a lot of pushback because of the potential to replace careers and stuff, but it really comes down to just having the option to be more efficient if you so please to take it. Like, it's not really replacing, and that's never the intention, especially with our tools at UJAM.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't be skeptical, or at least you should make up your own mind about new technology. But I've now been in this business for 40 years. Actually, this year, 40 years. I've seen the drum computer being an innovation. I've seen the MIDI sequencer being an innovation. I've seen samplers, all these things. None of the really big changes in technology wasn't met with a lot of backlash.
Right, of course.
And it was always the same thing. It was always like, this is going to put people out of jobs and stuff like that.
That's the idea of it potentially replacing a cultural piece of humanity. That's the sensitive part. The way that I use Virtual Guitarist as a non-guitarist in a real production is usually for, like I said, efficiency and demoing and finding parts that could be played realistically by a guitarist. That's another thing that I always thought was super unique about Virtual Guitarist, is that I can trust the voicings and that it's actually true. It's going to hold up. It's going to be true in relation to how a real guitar is played. So when I write a part, because I want control over my production, that's easy for me. And then if I do need to record a guitarist just because I want the sound to be a little different, that's the translatability is what I like most about it. And I think that's mainly the vision behind it. It's not meant to replace real guitarists.
It's cool that you say that, because to me it's funny and ironic at the same time that, of course, in designing Virtual Guitarist, our ambition was to make it sound as realistic as possible.
Yeah.
But when I use it in my own music, I use it as this organic thing that's hopefully not even recognizable as guitar. And that's, by the way, that's also a reason why in this 2 series of Virtual Guitarist, we introduced the stomp boxes and the finishers. And if you go through the presets of each of those titles, there's always a creative or sound designy or whatever. I don't remember exactly how we called it, folder. And you can create textures that sound like a synthesizer, but because it's based on guitar, it sounds way more organic.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, we have someone also said they actually knowing how to play a guitar almost helps you understand VG too, in a way.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting because it's a really interesting presentation of an instrument, because it's like, I'm a pianist and it's represented on piano keys, yet the logic in instrument mode, for example, is a fretboard and a string set. So it's like, that's something I had to wrap my head around, where I was like, oh, that's kind of cool though, because I know how guitars work in theory. I know there's a fretboard and I know that there's a strum area, So having that on a piano, I was like, this is kind of fun. I can figure out how to play a guitar in a language that makes sense to me. It's cool.
And it's something we try to do in all our series. Like, if you think about virtual pianist or virtual drummer, we always say you don't have to know how it works. Just go ahead and you will create something that you might like, right?
Sure.
But if you know how it works, in Virtual Guitarist, as you just mentioned, the instrument mode, of course, if you know how a guitar works, the instrument mode gets you more realistic results. In Virtual Pianist, if you can play a piano, you probably won't use the player, or you will use the player to create stuff that your fingers won't play, because you already have your ways. And in Virtual Drummer as well, I used to be, in my studio days, I used to play drums on keys, and it was a real sport back in the day, and you can still do that in Virtual Drummers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I actually have a funny story. We're talking about using it as a placeholder and then replacing it with guitar. I was writing a pre-chorus for like an electronic pop song, and I had just these very wide open acoustic strums. I think it might have been like silk or amber. And it was basically just like a 7 chord that I programmed, but it was just like a couple quick like do 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 and then do do do, and it would build. And I always imagined that my friend Mike would record a guitar for the final version. And because I was just a placeholder, I was like, yeah, I want something like, I don't know if that's the right tone. But when it got to the point of me like mixing and finalizing the track, and I asked him, I was like, here's my latest bounce, but like that's the guitar I want you to record. His response was like, why? I feel like you don't need it. It sounds lit. He said. So I thought it was funny, because I was like, maybe we did too good of a job in making it sound so clean that it's actually like, he didn't think he could record something cleaner than that. So he said, this actually sounds great. Just mix it into the song. And I was like, wow, okay. So if a real guitarist is like, I don't need to redo that, then that's pretty credible, I think.
And that's really, really cool. But I'd say in there's cases where that won't be the case, where your friend, I think that's an interesting use of it, and if you just create your demos with our instruments, so that's a better way of communicating with the producer in the end, or with the musicians you're gonna hire. Yeah. I mean, as you know, the way we define an instrument in UJAM, at the very beginning, it's not text, it's a playlist.
Right.
It's
styles,
like, it's music. It's all about the sound. It's all about the music. If you try to describe that, chances are people will just misunderstand you in a lot of ways.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. We've got, someone said they also love that you can change the strum styles in the middle of a song. So you can have like a very versatile playback, like a real conducting instrumentalist that plays in different ways at different times. That's also true, the different strum styles. Yeah.
Totally. And actually what I try to do all the time, maybe that's a useful tip for somebody. I actually try to, I mean, you're not stuck on bars if when you trigger the styles. Right. You can set the thing so it just keeps playing, doesn't re-trigger. And then I try to actually frequently and in between even beats change the phrasing. Yeah. Because then it will really sound like a natural performance. You can almost do it randomly. Somehow it always works out.
Right. We've got a question that I can't really answer. A question, do you plan to support Linux in the future? There are workarounds, but it's not easy for beginners. I wish that I could say more on that. I've heard of nothing about Linux support at this moment. So unfortunately that we can't offer much of a response there, I think. But
unfortunately, sorry, not concretely on this question, but what I can say, and you know that as well, Adam. Mm-hmm. We're very driven by requests. We're very driven by data. So it's not like, at the beginning of a year, we just sit together and everybody has 3 free product ideas and then we're going to do them. It's very, very controlled by support inquiries and stuff. And I know that there's many musicians, but for us to justify not doing something else, like, for example, not doing the next Virtual Guitarist, but do a Linux version of all of those Virtual Guitarists, right. There needs to be a certain threshold of input. As far as I understand, we haven't had that.
It seems to come down to a demand thing. Like the platform just has fewer users by nature. And so that would take away our development power from creating potentially new versions of the products that already exist on platforms we do support. So, and because that's mainly where our market lives, that's kind of just a business thing that we have to balance, which is hard because we do obviously have to listen to the users, but then also strategize around that. So
Yeah, and you know, I'm that guy in many regards. So often I feel like, you know, neglected just because I have a niche interest, or I mean, not saying Linux is a niche interest, but you know, I'm not mainstream, so I know the feeling.
yeah, right. Yeah, so I think yeah, a lot of support in the chat for VG. My favorite is Synedream.
Oh, thank you guys.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, they're really awesome tools. I'm excited to see what we do with the series in the future. I don't know much about it currently. But yeah, it's been a very helpful tool for me as a non-guitarist, and I think a lot of people's production workflows have changed because of it for the better. So I think that's a good wrap on VG. So happy 10-year anniversary for Virtual Guitarist at UJAM. Excited to see where the series goes. From here, I think that we could probably pivot into our song review part of the stream. We have a series of submissions. I think the only criteria was that you use Virtual Guitarist in your song. That's what I heard through the grapevine. So it's not a contest. It's just a song review session. So Peter and I are going to listen to these tracks. We're going to share the screen and the audio. And we're going to go one by one, just giving some input and first reactions. Or I think Peter's heard some of them already, so that's not an issue. We could just share feedback in general. A couple more questions. I just want to make sure we are actually answering. By the way, are you not going to do instruments for mobile or iPad versions too? That is the same kind of response as what we gave for Linux. I would say that there's been more focus on it though than Linux. We've talked about mobile, iOS, and iPad stuff. I think in the near future, it's probably becoming more possible that we might start doing something there, but currently it's still, I can't declare anything definitively.
No, I can say that all these instruments were designed from the outset to be eventually converted over, you know, to iPhone or iPad, you know, or any mobile device. And I mean, there's companies who sell a ton of stuff, you know, for the iPad.
Right.
It's something that I'd say we would probably already be doing if we were bigger.
It's just such a different development.
Everybody wants to do it, right? You know, so
it's just a different development stack and distribution. It's just a totally different market, and I think we know the tools. Like I think we recognize the power that our tools would have on those platforms, which is why we consider it, because being able to use something that is simple and clean UX-wise, which I think is kind of our superpower, that's the perfect environment to load it on an iPad for someone who wants a certain level of control. If you're already on an iPad, you're already sacrificing a lot of detail for efficiency and mobility. So I think we're aware of it, and it is on the table. It always has been. And I think we'll find the right time to make a move there at some point, but right now it's hard to say. Yeah. We have a really cool comment from B. Sangeloni. As someone who bought a ton of the native instruments versions of guitars, I have to say UJAM's implementation and UX is easier to understand and use from install. That's very cool.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Love to hear that.
Okay. Let's I'm just going to see one more time before we switch to the review. Yeah, Simon said in the chat, you can still submit songs. If you have a song that you want us to review, send it in our Discord, and with a SoundCloud link ideally, because that's how we're managing the review right now in the live stream. And again, those who are active in the chat will be entered for a chance to win a VG license of your choosing. There's 3 copies we're giving out. So thank you for being active. We love the questions and the support. And so we will switch now to our song review session here. So I'm going to switch our scene to the SoundCloud playlist that we've assembled. So we've got, how many on here? 10 songs on here. I don't think they're ranked for any reason. I think they were just assembled. So I would assume that we can just start at the top of the list and just give them...
Yeah, we haven't ranked anything internally.
Yeah, and I don't think we will be. This is not like a ranking.
No.
Yeah. So let's just start. I don't even know genre-wise. I think it's a very open-ended... I think these submissions are going to cover all types of music, right?
They're diverse, to say the least, yeah.
Cool. So let's start off by listening to Left Behind by Fake Luxury. And because this is SoundCloud, the volume normalization is basically non-existent. So some of them might be loud. I'll do my best to adapt and adjust them in real time. But let's take a listen again to Left Behind by Fake Luxury. Yeah, usually we give like around a minute because we don't have time to go through the whole song, but enough to see how it progresses. And I think I already have some comments on this one. Peter, do you want to start, or do you want me to go first?
Whichever way. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I really like this. I mean, the vibe is really soothing. It just reminds me of like, I mean, I wasn't around on this planet in like that 80s or like that kind of era, but it just feels something about it. I can't speak on the instrumentation because of that, but something about it feels very soothing to listen to. The production and composition wise, the mix feels very clean to me. I can't speak much on like the dynamics because I'm not sure. Like I don't. It maybe feels like it's consistently loud and there's not much of a dynamic change mix wise, but the clean mix is really soothing to me. I love the snare, the dry snare. I would be curious what you're using for drums or if it's VD or something. But yeah, vocals sound great. The overall vibe is really cool and peaceful to listen to. And I enjoyed it a lot. I don't really have much critique other than that.
I have, yeah. When listening to it, I had two instant impressions. I would listen to this, if it was not in, a submission. That's kind of music I would listen to. I really love this. And I have to also say, as a guy who's been involved with every virtual guitarist, no idea how he made it sound exactly like this. So I would be really curious. I think it's Sparkle, but normally I can tell you this guitarist is probably that style. It's probably that setting of the amps. This is really, really, really impressive.
That's true. I actually didn't. Kudos. I almost want to listen again with that in mind. I wasn't focusing much on the guitar. Let me just take.
I was only focusing on.
Let me take a couple seconds and listen to the guitar again. Yeah, it's really good chord voicing, I think. Yeah, the style doesn't seem like anything crazy. It's probably just one of the simpler styles.
Not crazy, but it just sits right. It's
the mix is great.
Right.
Yeah, the mix is great. Very nice track left behind. Fake Luxury left behind. Yeah, they said Operate Music and YouTube said that's their side project, Fake Luxury. Great.
Well, then I want to hear his main project.
Yeah, send your main project. Yeah. All right, let's move on then. We've got Serene Serendipity. I think that's the artist name. Yeah, Simon had to upload some of these, I think, that weren't on SoundCloud. So it says UJAM Instruments. That's not the artist. Serene Serendipity, I would assume, is the artist, and the song name is Cemetery Drive Is My Way Home. So let's take a listen and see what this is about. Peter, you got some initial thoughts?
Yeah. This is a great example for what I just mentioned earlier. What I like to do, doing stuff with virtual guitarists where it's not instantly recognizable that it's a guitarist. Here, I would guess it's probably Cinedream, and I would probably guess I'm hearing the Infinity finisher preset in there. But I might be completely wrong. Could be any other guitarist, any other effect, but. Yeah, I mean, this is a very nice, organic kind of ambient pad sound that is made by a guitar.
Yeah.
And it's tasteful, everything. Love it.
Yeah, I had the same reaction. Some of those ambience effects I feel like I recognize from some of our granular engines. Could be finishers or finishers within the VG, I'm not sure. But the song overall is really cool. The ambient, I've been getting more and more into like kind of ambient music, just like passionately while I work, and it helps me focus. And this this is one of those tracks. It just kind of develops progressively and gently, and it doesn't startle you, and the mix is pretty controlled. One thing that I really admire about it, which is hard to do specifically in ambient and minimal music, is the way that the drums sit in the mix, because drums can very easily just totally ruin that vibe and be too aggressive or too minimal.
Yes.
So I really liked the way that that snare was sitting, where it's like loud enough to notice, but it's not just cutting through the track. It's kind of just like sitting in the middle of it. And I really liked the way that the palette was working in the track. Yeah.
And I was also thinking it would not work without drums.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it would not work with too much drums. So it's very tasteful.
Perfect balance. Yeah, that's true. Because without the drums, this granular kind of pad swell is like almost too progressive, too ambient. Like it's almost harder to listen to without a tether, like some kind of rhythm.
Yeah.
Holding it down. So very tasteful production. I'll listen to the rest of it later while I work. It's going to help me focus. So that's I like that. Okay, so let's move on to so again, great track, Serene Serendipity. Track name Cemetery Drive is my way home. If I have that flipped, I'm sorry, but we like it. Keep it up. Moving on to Stonks, The Danger. Let's take a listen to this.
I'm very much afraid that you are in a great deal of danger.
This one's louder. Wow. Crazy.
That says it, right? Next track.
Crazy.
You said it all.
No, crazy song. Drum and bass through the roof. I'm not too experienced in like production of drum and bass, but I do know a lot about EDM in general, and I felt that one thing that stood out to me that makes the quality of this track apparent is the balance of tension, because the thing I noticed the most in EDM producers that are still kind of figuring it out is that everything is smooth through the build-up, and then when the drop comes, you can immediately tell if they're an amateur or if they're a professional, because the mix down and the leveling is essential, and the palette and the tension and the frequency balance. And this one did a good job, because I was like, oh, the intro and everything is great. Usually that's smooth sailing, because build-ups are kind of formulaic. They can be rather easy sometimes, but then delivering on the expectation is where it becomes clear of the quality of the production. And I think this one did a really great job, because the drop was the right amount of louder, and it had all these crazy textures in a bass that we didn't hear before, so it's relieving the tension. I thought it was a really cool track. I don't know where the guitar is. It's probably in the intro. There was, I think, some grungy kind of rock guitars. I would guess maybe iron or carbon. But yeah.
Definitely carbon, 100% carbon.
Peter, how about you?
Yeah, so that track to me totally stood out when I listened to it. You know, I got the list today and I skimmed through them because I had, you know, meetings and stuff, but I want to be a little bit prepared. So the fun bit about this one is, I remember when we did Carbon, we were very much looking for, is it pronounced gent? Is that it? Like super heavy 8-string kind of guitars.
Okay.
But in our playlist that we had, you know, to communicate to everybody what this was about, there were a lot of Mick Gordon tracks, and I don't know if that person is here in the chat, but I would love to know if he or she is a Mick Gordon fan. And we actually we did talk to Mick Gordon. We wanted him involved, but he was working on a game, and also we involved Hans. So I don't know. I'm always saying Hans. I don't know if everybody knows Hans Zimmer, film composer. He's part of UJAM. So we founded it together. And this is totally, you know, at least the first, whatever, 30, 40, 50 seconds until the drop, it's totally Mick Gordon Faust or something like that to me. And I dig that. I like you, it's not music that I would make or should make, but I love listening to it.
You never know what you should and shouldn't make.
Yeah,
Time on Earth is limited, Peter. Should
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great track. I'd be curious to. I'm gonna skip to this little second drop here. I'm curious what's happening here. More guitar.
Yeah, carbon. Yeah, carbon.
Nice. More of like a classic rock groove there. That's cool. Very cool track, Stonks. Thanks for sharing. Loved it. All right, moving on, just because we're slowing down a bit here. Reaching the Spaceport by Yearning Clouds. It says that they use VG Carbon in here, so let's see what we've got in store from Yearning Clouds. Nice.
Yeah, that is a carbon preset, or at least a carbon style. Yeah, yeah.
That's a cool sound. Nice. Yeah, very cinematic. I'll kick off on this one, just because my brain's going already. I like the name. The name is great, descriptive of how it feels, reaching the spaceport. This is very cinematic. This feels like a score. I think a lot of symphonic elements, and carbon, I think. And I really like the palette of it. There was one sound that Peter just said was carbon that was just emanating that I really thought was cool. And I don't know if I've heard that preset, if it's a preset, but that very cool use of sounds and sonic selection. My only critique would be on mixdown related stuff, leveling wise, like some of I think there were SE drums or SE perks in there, and the impact of the impact of them wasn't as severe as they could be. They felt kind of a little too quiet and a little too tucked, and some of the earlier percussion, like the bell hits, felt a little loud to me. So just general like kind of leveling mixdown threw me off a little bit, but the actual palette of the score, I'm going to call it a score because it's really cinematic, and I thought that was cool. I loved it. Otherwise, tastefully and aesthetically, I loved it. So very cool.
Yeah, same here. I can only second all that. I heard a lot of symphonic elements. I heard strings, I heard drums. I think I heard brass as well, and carbon. I'd say, yeah, I'd probably second what you said, Adam, but put it this way. Touching the mix again, like looking at the mix again and fixing that could improve this whole thing dramatically. It's already great, like, idea, arrangement, sounds, everything. I like that. Mm-hmm. It could have way more power through the mix.
Yeah, just like another mixing pass, which isn't abnormal. You get lost in the sauce of production and sound searching, and then you got to go back and just make sure it's release ready or whatever. So
yeah, I'm and that's and you guys probably notice I'm not commenting too much on mixes because I'm not an engineer at all. When I was in the studio, I always had an engineer sitting next to me, right. Which means I'm as capable as a 13-year-old when it comes to mixing. So I know exactly how this works.
Cool. I'm gonna refresh. Simon said we added a song at the end, so I'm just gonna make sure I have them all. Cool, but I think that we are ready to move on to the next one. Thanks again for the track Yearning Clouds, the track reaching the spaceport. Another reminder that those who are active in the chat are going to be entered to win a license to VG, any title of your choosing. So we appreciate the comments and the questions in the chat, and I think Simon's probably going to do the raffle fairly soon, so make sure you're in there. Moving on to Capsules of Happiness by Creative by, okay, maybe I'm misunderstanding. I don't know what the song title is, but I think it's Capsules of Happiness. Let's take a listen. Peter, you want to go first?
Ha. Yeah, very, very cool. Reminds me of Genesis in the Steve Hackett
Yeah.
days, which is probably 30 years before everybody here in this chat was born. But I love the intro lead. I love, I would be very impressed if, after the intro, that guitar is Virtual Guitarist. Good job. I heard in the beginning it's most probably iron in instrument mode, but I love that music. I'm still happy when young people still make that stuff, because there was a time like in the 90s or so when this progressive stuff, like, Genesis was totally a total no-go. And it's coming back. And I like the arrangement, everything, but on details, probably you, Adam.
Yeah. I mean, I like that vibe. I struggle to put a name to that genre because I don't think I was like into it when it was at its peak, but Genesis struck a...
You were -40, Adam.
Okay, so yeah. So Genesis does sound familiar though, and I don't know if post-rock is the right label, but that's what my brain wants to do, is like some kind of like, it's more ambient rock almost, like it's a little more progressive. I really like the vibe, and I like that style of music in general. I thought it was cool. I mostly noticed mixed things on this one as well. I heard a couple pieces of distortion and like muddiness happening, I think, between guitars and maybe cymbals. But in general, yeah, I mean, the production, like the other track, the production and the idea is all there. And I like the development of the track, but just the mix down kind of for me could be... It was less about leveling this time and more about just, I think, mud and even clipping. I think there was just a little bit of distortion that sounded a little unintentional, maybe, and maybe it was just clipping. I'm not sure, but maybe it was intentional, and I'm not one to comment on that. So that's just based on my brain and how I would evaluate it in this moment. So cool track. Thank you very much for sharing it. Track Capsules of Happiness. I like the name too. Cool. All right, let's go down to... How about Having a Brownie by Heikki Demono? Hickey Demono? I don't know if I'm saying that wrong. I'm sorry if I am. But let's take a listen. Nice. Great. Peter, you want to go or you want me to go?
I can. Before the vocals, it sounded extremely like Japanese harmonization to me, and I'm totally into that. Actually, I have to say, I'm a very avid gamer. The first thought that came to mind is like, oh wow, that's probably what Zelda would sound like if they would do a version, today. And I don't mean this. I don't mean this just playfully. I have a ton of respect for game soundtracks. That's my favorite music. Yeah, that's the main points I would make here. Very well arranged. I love the vibe. It's got this. It almost makes you dance a little bit, and good use of the instruments in there.
Yeah. I heard the strumming in there. It sounded almost like a direct signal, like an electric guitar signal. Might have been the clean direct amp mode or whatever. But yeah, I really like this track. I don't listen to enough music like this. It makes me feel really good, and I should listen to more of it. It's just really cool and fun, like collection of sounds working together. Only note on the mix is that I feel like the vocal thing could be louder. But then again, if that's an artistic choice to kind of just have it more subtle, it worked still. I still liked the song. So you made a song that I liked either way. So I don't have much else to comment. I thought it was playful. And like Peter said, I could hear the influence and like it reminded me gently of this type of music that I actually enjoy, but I don't get to hear very often. So very cool. Cool. All right, let's keep flying through them. Gnarly by Chucky Caprice. Let's see.
Drowning in sweat, feels like I'm born again. Pull me close, don't pull me down. If I can breathe, then I can drown. This reckless love we set on fire, and watched it as it burned into the night.
Very cool. Also, I have to apologize for the Slack. If you guys hear the Slack sounds on my system, I forgot to mute those, so sorry about that. Yeah, this song is cool. I like the minimalism and breathability of it, and I also really like the vocal tone that you have in this song. I don't know if it's your voice or if it's someone else, but it's got a really interesting kind of mix down where it feels minimal, but everything is still impactful. There are a couple of leveling things that I personally would do differently if I were mixing it. There was like a cymbal thing that kind of startled me a little bit, and I think the vocal is maybe a little bit too loud for my taste. Again, mixing is very subjective, so I'm not ever trying to say that anything's wrong. The song itself is cool. I don't really know how I would call that genre-wise, but it seems unique, and that's cool as an artist. So it sounds like maybe your identity. So I enjoyed listening to that. Yeah, Peter, how about you?
To me, it sounds like a mix of genres. It started out a little bit 80s, 80s like to me, stuff that I listened to in the 80s. Phenomenal voice, I think. If I had any advice, and also, by the way, use of iron there, the doubling, I think also a bit of variance, sounds totally credible, sets a statement and everything. If anything, for this kind of music, I'd probably cut the intro to maybe a quarter of the length that it had. But again, that's an artistic decision, and who am I? 61-year-old white guy. So.
Yeah, that could be something that I felt too, is just like the getting to the vocal. I mean, the vocal was probably my favorite part, just the tone of it and the quality.
Crazy good vocals.
Yeah, cool.
You know what it reminded me of? Honestly, I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but if not, I totally recommend you guys to look at that. It's on YouTube. There's a reaction video where deadmau5 reacts to somebody, just some kid on Instagram, adding vocals to his track called The Veld. Mm-hmm. Just look up The Veld. It's VELDT, deadmau5, and check out this video. He listens to it for the first time. This had almost such an effect on me. It was like, what? When the vocals came in.
Nice. Yeah, great vocals. We also have a comment, someone saying that they would like to hear the choruses if we don't get to them through these. So I will make an effort to, like, once we stop, to jump around a little bit more, maybe just to explore the track more. So we could do that with this one, just to...
Pull me close,
well, we heard this.
pull me down.
So this one, I think we did hear the spread of it for the most part. So I will keep that in mind. Thanks for the tip. All right, moving on to Groove Alloy. So again, thank you for the track Chucky Caprice with the track Gnarly. Moving on to Groove Alloy by Xenical X. Peter?
I remember the first words coming to mind when I listened to it this morning for the first time. It was Fever Dream.
Fever Dream. Yeah.
And I have to say, I mean, it's all over the place in terms of instruments and harmonization and rhythm and stuff. I absolutely love it. And when the organ came in, I remember it totally cracked me. It cracked me up this time. There's so much tongue in cheek. I couldn't care less in there. In a creative way. Absolutely love this. Would I listen to that kind of music for 2 hours in a row? Not sure. Not for meditation. Not for meditation purposes.
Yeah. Very high energy, very chaotic. I think that, so I'm going to speak truthfully based on my own background. I am a person with ADD, so all the music that I work on, I've tried with very close detail to make things the complete opposite of distracting. And so I really like pop music and formulaic, here's the hook, you can identify what's happening. So this to me, I struggled with a little bit. I like the high energy, like Peter said, Fever Dream. This is the type of thing I would expect in a scene about someone losing their mind or actually just dissociating and having a fever dream. It felt but musically, in terms of listening to it as a song, I think I would struggle with it a little bit with the composition because the energy levels seem kind of disconnected. The drums are going crazy the whole time, but then you have instruments that are changing very frequently and new sounds are coming in that you don't hear again later. And mix-wise, I think it also doesn't help the clarity, that it feels very brick-walled. You can even see in the waveform that it feels like there's no dynamic range. It kind of just hits you with full force and stays at that level. So if that were something you did want to improve, maybe working on how these instruments are entering and being presented to the user, I think there could be a little bit more dynamics to emphasize your favorite sounds. But this is all subjective. That's just how I would approach it with an electronic pop background. I don't know what genre this is, but it's cool and it's unique. So I appreciated the listening. I didn't really focus on the guitar. I don't know if Peter caught that.
Yeah, I did. So I would say two things. This is the soundtrack to your ADD, Adam, and I think my connection to it, is when I was 18 or so, I was the synthesizer guy in a punk band, which is an impossible thing in itself. Yeah. But we did exactly these things. When we started a rehearsal, we would just go, okay, everybody go. Nobody, no rules, no nothing.
Just play.
Totally love that. Yeah.
It's fun. I mean, it's a vibe. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing, Xenical. Great track. Yeah, he said, I know it's a little experimental. It's noted. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you do you. Artists for us individually. So do whatever makes you happy, and that's cool.
We have enough non-experimental in the world.
Yeah, and there always will be people that enjoy that. Just because it's not me doesn't mean no one else will. So keep it up. All right, Electric State by Monospark. Let's see what you got.
I live in electric state, up against our fate. It's a circuit break down in you. I give more than just my best.
Crazy, amazing.
For the test makes me want to break down with you.
Nice. I'm gonna jump around a little. Cool. Yeah, I'll go first on this one. I really like this. There's something, again, I think my absence in this decade maybe means I'm referring to it too much, but it feels 80s. It reminds me of my fiance's dad has this big 80s rock influence, and he's a musician, and a lot of the music that he writes feels like this. It's very vibey, and the vocal something about the vocal style is really cool and attractive to me, and I love those little like wavy synth like motifs, the like those kind of walk down synths that are gliding around. It creates a very cool soundscape that I like. It's kind of like psychedelic rock almost. Like it's got this kind of trip out vibe that's not too experimental, so it's still focusable for my ADD brain. So I do really like it, and the vocal quality and the way the vocal's sitting, the tone, is really cool. I enjoyed the listen. Yeah.
Yeah, I would add, if that person isn't over 50, they, they have how do you say, like, they have been reborn. They must have been in the 80s. It's so spot. I mean, I was there, it's so spot on. To me, it's totally like Human League or, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. But how they would want to sound like today. So I totally love that. I love the Bollywood strings in there.
Is that the kind of, that's this, I was thinking of it as
whatever it is, but it had a Bollywood.
You're right, though. Yeah, you're right.
Like, yeah. Totally love that. That's like tasteful rule breaking is something I really appreciate. So absolute favorite for me. One of the favorites for me, this track. And also kudos on, it's very unusual to use a super clean sparkle in there, like a super clean guitar. Very good use, very good arrangement of that as well.
Yeah, they actually said, I think Single Spark in the chat is the artist. He said he's an 80s guy. He went for a Peter Murphy sound, and he's 58. So yeah, you were spot on. You were spot on. And someone else said like Bowie. Yeah, did remind me kind of David Bowie, who the person I referenced has a big influence from David Bowie as well. So I think we're identifying the style here, and it's really cool. It's a track.
Yes.
It's cool stuff.
It has Bowie. It has Bowie vibes in there.
All
And Adam, that Simon and I, our Simon, we talk a lot about 80s stuff, but what he means with 80s, it's like synthwave. It's today's 80s.
Of course,
that's amazing. When I say 80s, I mean like 80s. So I can totally hear if somebody's young or has been there, and at least that's what I think of. That's totally
I guess the synthwave connotation is kind of like, I would assume that's 80s electronic or 80s pop almost, where those sounds are present. But this is more like 80s rock, I guess. It's kind of like psychedelic.
No.
This pop?
That was pop. Yeah, that was.
Okay, so this was pop. Maybe it's like a pop rock thing from the 80s. Yeah. But yeah, that very cool track. We liked it. Simon announced the winners. So the people that were active in the chat that won a free license to any VG title of their choosing are Nick James Music Official, B. Sangeloni, and AJ USA. So congratulations to you guys. I think usually just connect with the UJAM support team either on Instagram, or if you're in our Discord, then just shoot them a message, or I guess worst case scenario, a support thread if you really can't get in touch with them. But just say that you want a license, and then they're going to ask you which VG title you want. So you get to pick any VG title, and they'll redeem the license to your account. So congrats again to you guys. We just got a couple more. I think there's one more song because we've had Fake Luxury already at the top. So if we're feeling like we have a couple minutes, we'll explore those. But Kevin Hicks is the next one who we haven't heard from. So let's jump into Why I Wonder Why by Kevin Hicks.
It's like 95 degrees on this side of the breeze, and the heat doesn't seem to want to fade. Nestled in the crease between birth and now deceased, it's a simple infliction we can't evade. It gets you on your way up, and you slowly fail to keep it down. In case your mind is made up, I guess the world could always use one more clown. Wash my hands but miss my feet, saved my ass but lost my seat, and I could never be clever, so it's no wonder why I wonder why. Angels' wings, but that's the end. Does it all just start again? We're only weathering for...
All right. Peter, what do you think?
I think Kevin is pretty vocal on in our UJAM community. Like he regularly posts songs. I've
Oh,
heard
cool.
that voice before.
Okay, nice.
So I mean, this is great voice, a great arrangement. I'd say the only comment I would make, like between the drums and the bass and the guitar, they're a little bit of a dysfunctional family. Like they love each other, but they constantly fight. I think I identified carbon in there. So yeah, not much to add other than I can hear a bunch of UJAM instruments in there, really well used. This is what we're doing the instruments for. So
Yeah, that's
what
true.
do you think?
That's true. I would say the same. I did notice a lot of, seemingly a lot of UJAM instruments sounds that I recognized. I liked, I liked the vibe overall. I liked the vocal tonality that you have. Mix wise, I actually liked your stereo imaging. I thought that was kind of cool. Like I thought the positioning of the
Yeah,
instruments was cool. Like the guitars felt wide, but they didn't dominate, and the drums were in a nice place. And then you had, I think, some keys come in like the right side. I liked the imaging a lot. I think the leveling could have been a little more streamlined. Like I thought personally that the drums were too quiet, the keys were too loud. The guitars I think were fine. But yeah, I really liked the stage that you set. But I think the mix down for me could have been a little bit more tighter. But the song vibe wise was cool. I enjoyed the lyrics. I liked what you were singing about. So, yeah, thanks for sharing, Kevin Hicks. And if you're active in our community, then thanks for being around. And we
yeah,
we hope to hear more from you. So I think on that note, so because we've already done a track by Fake Luxury and we are over, usually we try to limit our streams to like 50 minutes to an hour max, and we're now about an hour 10. So I think on this note, we probably have to call it. So I'm going to thank you again to everybody who submitted songs. This was really fun. We enjoyed reviewing them, and there's a lot of spread here and a lot of talent. And it's cool to see what you guys are doing with our products and to prove to us that they are actually useful in making music. So this has been really fun for me, and it's great to also recount the history of Virtual Guitarists as we celebrate a 10-year anniversary. So Peter, thanks again for joining us.
oh, it was my pleasure. It was great fun.
Yeah, we had a blast, and thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah,
And congrats
yeah.
again to the 3 winners. Enjoy your new Virtual Guitarist licenses. And on that note, yeah, I guess we'll call it a wrap, and we will see you guys next time. So thanks for tuning in.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys.